Usual day. It's not the usual time, and this is why we changed the time for this one, for that streaming today about three times. And I apologize to whoever has been affected by this in a way or another. And this is exceptional. We're trying to relocate our streaming on LinkedIn, especially just due to time zones overseas. So we want to serve the European community, and we want to do the same with Asia. And this is why we're going to move the time and probably also the day of the week. This is still a weekly event, and I welcome you today for this very exceptional theme that I think is pretty passionate by many of you. It's passionate by me, if we can say passionate. I'm passionate about it, and you are maybe for some of you, or many of you, very passionate about it. And this is about freedom, this is about free will, this is about your autonomy, your independence. And we're going to go over a few stories, and we're going to go over a few situations that you might recognize for yourself. And maybe that will bring some clarity. That's the goal. And for the weeks to come, we'll have a few guests that will also share their experience on this. So call it, if you want, a series, but it's definitely one of the most major, I think, theme of leadership and workforce and, excuse me, workplace, how people really uh, uh, evaluate how they position themselves and what the value of their job is, and the value of what the time that they spend at work is. So we're going to find all these answers within the next few minutes. Not all the answers, but probably some suggestions and some inspiring ones, hopefully. I wanted to also give you a little housekeeping, please, for YouTube, especially to subscribe. I know I cannot not start streaming without asking you to subscribe on YouTube, especially because all the other channels that we broadcast this program don't have subscriptions. This is the one that really is the one with subscriptions. What does it do? I just take a second, but it does give us a lot of encouragement, number one, to continue. Number two, it shows that you're interested. And number three, we give it gives us also the means to have incredible and quality guests like we had so far. We don't have a very regular weekly guest for different reasons, but I will tell you the real truth is I'm extremely busy, and this is taking a lot of time to find the selected guests for yourself. But there is some people that are now scheduled for the next 2 months. Some are CEOs, some are business owners, some are artists, celebrities, and anyone who is impacting in a discreet way or in a public way the world and change the world by their incredible insights, by what they do or for who they are, especially how many people and how much they invest themselves into helping others. So that's why it's interesting that we can have these testimonials, because that's what they are. And also want to also mention something else, because this is always very important. Coaching or mentoring or mediating are different things and muscles that we learn with skills and competencies, obviously. That's why certification is important. And many people can call themselves coaches, mediators, or mentors. But the most important thing is day to day is what people go through, and they have different mindsets and different situations and challenges they have to go through. The coaching is just first and foremost a sounding board, someone who is actively listening and have been through different experiences that are similar to yours, and can be your partner to find clarity, to understand the situation, to navigate difficulties, politics, all kind of things that can come up in leadership or in a work environment. So this is why I just noticed with this definition, I think that anyone who can have a comfort zone issue, has difficulty with different things, difficult conversations, conflicts, appearing for the first time on stage and making a public speech or a presentation, or people that are intimidating, all those different situations that involve also emotional intelligence and building your own persona, your presence, your executive presence, as we call it, your leadership, your impact, your charisma, your persona, all of those different things need to be practiced, need to be evaluated and assessed on a regular basis. And that's how you really develop yourself. That's how you can reflect and become stronger and better every single day. So the coach is a partner. That's all that it is. And I think there is a lot of good coaches out there and good mentors and good mediators. On the mediation side, it's something that I'm not doing so often, but I'm certified for, and especially divorce mediation. This, don't ask me why I got to divorce mediation. I had no reason really to bet so much to divorce mediation, but a few motivations that took me to that area as well. Because I think that the coaching brings to mediation a lot of competencies that are needed, sometimes even to put back people who are in conflict or want to divorce and finally realize that they just have a communication issue with each other. That would be really a shame to destroy a whole family for that, right? And that's not, I'm not saying that it happens so often, but it does. And I think the coaching makes it possible. And I think the mediation to coaching is extremely important because there is a lot of conflict. There is a lot of misunderstandings. A lot of times when we need a neutral entity to bring people to agreements and to consensus, or groups of people. So the coaching is individual, that sometimes a team coaching, sometimes a group coaching, and I'll tell you another time all the differences that it makes between one to the other. But definitely, coaching is a tool. Coaching is not a science. It's maybe an art to some extent, but it's definitely experience. And you bring the coach to all the different situations you're going through, and then you're not alone. And not only that, you work on yourself and you build long-term outcomes for yourself. So this was a little bit of a clarification on coaching that sometimes it's good to remind people. Let's go now to the topic that I wanted to share with you today. And that's a topic that comes back, or that I sometimes have to provoke and initiate or proactively bring to the table. You know, sometimes, and it happens, a coaching client doesn't know really what to talk about. There is just a session to come in a series of sessions. And it so happens that sometimes the client is tired or did not prepare himself or herself. And it makes the session a little bit challenging for the coach, because it's good when the client is prepared. But when it's not, there's a theme that I suggest, and this is when it happens, about how do you feel in terms of your independence? Because what it's really amazing is that when you talk about this, the root of many problems, and let's list the two or three of them you're going to recognize quickly. Time management, right? Prioritization, a little bit connected to it. Or thirdly, meetings, multiple, abundant meetings. I call it a little bit like the meeting syndrome. That's a thing that has been around forever. How can we communicate other than, of course, meeting with our direct reports, with our colleagues, with our peers, with our executive teams, and attend and sometimes be mandated to attend different meetings? And since COVID, when it's becoming even more virtual, there's a huge fatigue about that. So this is a dependence. I really want to first address this issue. You are dependent on many, many, many things. And if you really come back to, and this is really another kind of assessment to make, and there is tools that I created on this as well, where you can really assess your level of dependence, or call it your opposite of being free, because you are feeling within yourself that you have an obligation. You are a pleaser, people pleaser. You have very limited boundaries, not so many. Anyway, not enough of them. There is all kind of vulnerabilities and different situations that you think force you to attend the meeting, or to just be dependent on writing a report that is not asked, or any other things that you do because you prefer to use email than making a phone call. That all these things are dependencies that, for most, and I'm sure you're going to recognize it if you're honest with yourself, created by you. And those dependencies are accepted by you, never negotiated with the person or stakeholders that are creating that dependency. But dependency or dependencies are really on your way to succeed, to blossom, to make a day feel accomplished, to achieve your goals. All of those things are really very usually obstructed by these dependencies. I want to also ask you, for those who are watching and listening, the streaming, of course, you'll have the recordings, then it will not be very possible to do it this way, but you have a live chat that is available to you. If you want to ask questions or share your own comments, please do so, because I would love to have everybody see what you want to share about this particular topic. There's so much you could share, so much things you could say, and advice that you could give. Why is it coming to a subject like changing the world? Why is it that you change the world, which I really think is a very meaningful title for this program, but very sincerely appropriate as well? Many, many of you, and I said it a few times, because that's what was behind my mind when I came up with that title and this intention of creating this program, is because everyone, without exception, can make a huge difference in the world. Everyone, without exception, makes a difference in the world, change someone's life, or changes the world without even knowing. It's amazing, but it's true. So many people do that without knowing. You make a gesture in the airport while you're online, and you give someone else's your turn for something, or any act of goodness, of kindness, of generosity. You can save a family just by doing something that you don't even realize will save that family. You come across someone in the street that you will recognize 10 years later, or will recognize you 10 years later, and say, you know what, when you give me this box, or when you did this, you saved my life. You saved people's lives. So this is why we call that program this way. And this is why a theme like today about your independence, your autonomy, is so important. So we said that it's sometimes, or most of the time, a good proportion of the dependencies that you have are in your mind. But there is a reality. You accepted 30, 40, 50% of your time being tied into dependencies. Now, I'm talking to leaders, to managers. I'm talking to people who are usually working as white collars in the office or at their home. And when they go work at their home, the amount of independence is even increased by 200%. But there is an exception, and I just don't want to forget that exception. There is all the field, frontline people who work, in healthcare, are the caretakers, the providers. Those people have to go by shifts, by certain times. They have to be present. They have to cover a shift. And that's obviously a 12 hours or 8 hours. It's overnight, it's during the day, it's the emergency room, it's a doctor, or it's a front desk manager or a front desk clerk in a hotel or anywhere else. So those are the frontliners, right? Or a call center. You cover, you have to be there by a certain time. That's a very different story. But even within this context, there's still dependencies that you could also just get rid of. Cut those strings, cut those umbilical cords that are not yours, that shouldn't be yours. So what does it take? It takes, in the action plan, to create boundaries, to just tell yourself, no, 1 second, I have some times in the day that I need to have for myself. I call it untouchable moments. Nobody can really interrupt you. And if you can just decide at what time it's going to be and where it's going to be, because the space is important. And whatever you make of that time, if it's meditation, or if it's just introspection, or if it's calling your wife, or whatever, you use these 10 minutes, 15 minutes, this hour, even for sometimes, from some of you, or that day, if it's once a week. Yeah, there's people who are going to take a day to do that. So once a month, you need to reflect. You need to do things and take a step back and just look at things at a high level and try to just see if you have to revise different decisions and different things that come your way and you didn't have time to pay attention. This autonomy of yours is going to make you gain so much leverage, so much power, power over yourself. And this is really unbelievably true. There is no, magic formula for that. It's just first to realize it, to assess it. So again, if you come by me, I will give you a few forms if you need a structure, a framework to understand how much you're dependent on things. And then the discovery, when you do these assessments, is going to be, and it's always starting with a certain percentage. I ask you, the first question is, and I ask everybody when we talk about time management, how much time do you think you are mandated to attend or to do things that are not within your own scope of choices? You have to do it. It's for your boss, it's for your boss's boss, whatever it is. This is not a choice. This is mandatory. There's a management meeting every week. All of these things that you have to do. So my question is to you is, if you assess that, and you say to me today, if I would ask the question that, oh, I have 60% of my time that I decide on that is totally autonomous. Fine. That's a good proportion, by the way, 60%. Because I hear usually the opposite, right? I hear 40% and 60% dependent. For many, many middle management people, when you go a little bit higher in the management role, it's true that it's going to start getting a little bit more close to 50 or 60% independence. All right, but what about the other 50%, the other 40%? I'm not saying you're going to have 100% autonomy, no, but there will be an improvement, and we're going to work on this together. Or you don't have me to use me for that. You use yourself, and you really think over what is really exceeding and what you can delegate to people that can represent you to attend some meetings that happen every day. I remember that day when I had a boss. This was in healthcare, and we had this conversation. It was amazing. I said, listen, I am in charge of certain people that are in the front line, and I am managing patient experience and all the things. And I talked to my boss and I said, hey, I have to go every day to those meetings that occupy more than 80% of my day. And there's some of meetings I sit there and I really realize, what am I doing here? It's not really for me to be here. And she took an offense from this, because if she was the one assigning me to those meetings, she took this personally as an offense. I was just trying to rationalize with her, not asking anything, just sharing that I could really take one of my team member and represent me to go there. I didn't say the meeting was not important, but I said I'm not important to that meeting. Anyway, this discussion went nowhere. It was really amazing, by the way. And she really was very, very tough on me that I had to go by what she said. And my dependence was really very strongly on her. Even I expressed my frustration. This was the case. I had no choice, really. It's not exactly how it happened, by the way. It was a bit strange situation. She started to call people to say, Andre is not available for your meeting, so take note of it. He will not come to your meeting anymore. I did not even ask her to do that. Plus, she called some people that I needed to go to their meetings. But that's a little story, personal story. But it is true that try to think about that in your head, what you can triage and select for you to save time and save productivity and save yourself from frustrations and from aggravations. That's very important. And meetings is definitely one of the themes that come probably most of the time. But now if I say emails, for example, many of you think that email is a good communication tool. And I think, and I always say, and claim and yell, please don't use email. Never do. And if you do use email, let's send a document and say, attached is a document, have a good day. Just never, ever create an email because you want to engage a conversation, you want to share a feeling, a frustration, you want to tell someone what to do, or you want to even give someone a lesson. Absolutely never by writing. When I'm saying writing, no emails, no messaging, no WhatsApp, no Slacks, not of any of this. We'll go back to that. It's another topic, but this is also your autonomy. This is why I bring it up. Your autonomy, your dependence on email, your dependence on, in fact, your phone and everything that is electronic. You know what I'm talking about. This is becoming now another topic which touches almost the theme of addiction. That's a different story, but it affects all of us, all of us. And that's another problem. This is also a dependence that we need to address. This is a dependence that I put on this assessment. And when there is a proportion of that that is taking beyond the average normality, then I'm going to tell you that's a warning, it's a red flag, and we need to do something about it. Now, down the road, weeks, months, and you see that this rate of autonomy increased, and that dependencies, especially those that were not relevant to you, disappeared, is going to teach you, is going to give you a lot of precious information about yourself. Outcome of all of this, the outcome of all of this is what? It's time management, saving time. It's saving your pride as well, that in fact you are accountable for what you do and you own what you do. So you can always say to someone, hey, 1 second, if I'm saying to you, I'm not available for this meeting anymore because I'm just responsible and I own my time and I own my title and I own my responsibilities and my accountabilities. And this is why I made the decision not to do that and send this person instead of me. This is an acceptable statement. With a smile, it's a positive statement. It's not negative. It's not a rejection. It's nothing negative, nothing. It's just a reframing and an organizational initiative that you take for yourself that will affect other people positively, that will have a good influence on others. Plus, it's going to give you a smile because the more you gain autonomy and the more you feel accomplished. So you have your stories. I have my stories. I just shared one. But when you start to make that tweak or that shift in your mindset and in the way you approach time management and priorities and dependencies, it really makes you feel much, much better, because this is about freedom we're talking about here. And when I said that we're going to talk about freedom of choice, that's an amazing thing when we are self-aware that most of everything that we do and most of everything that we live through is a personal choice. You know it, and I know it. You have total freedom of choice. And that freedom of choice that you have makes makes yourself your own boss to some extent. You know, this idea of bosses and hierarchy and accountability is one thing that, of course, is real. But organizations become more and more complicated. The matrix organization makes it a little bit less pyramidal. And because of that, we count on you. Most of the employers, by the way, in high tech in particular, expect a manager to take that behavior, to take that attitude of independency and autonomy. That's expected of you. In other words, your boss doesn't want to micromanage you, and your boss doesn't want to tell you what to do. You come to me, the boss, if I am your boss, and you tell me what you want to do for yourself. What is important is we collaborate and that we bring results and are successful. I set you for success, you set me for success. We all are here in the same boat for the same thing. I often say, when you want to engage people that work with you or for you, or that you work for, this incredible sentence that I'm saying, like, we are all here in this together, right? We all in this together. That challenge that we have to share, that project that we have to run, those obstacles that we have to overcome, we have to do this together. We are all in this together. What does it mean? We are all in this together. That means that each member of the team, even they are reporting to you, have a voice, can voice it, and can give an opinion or take an initiative for themselves. So I talked for almost a half hour. There's about 6 minutes left. And I want to use those 6 minutes to share two different stories that have impacted people tremendously. This first wake up that I'm thinking of is this person that worked in a medical environment. This time it was a lab. And this person, from the beginning of her employment as a very important key person in the scientific team, had a total misunderstanding of the American culture. She came from Asia. She comes from Asia. She's still there. And different situations and dynamics around her could not be giving any kind of message to her that could be understood. She was very, very unclear, very confused. And this is what, in fact, happened along the way. There was, situations like she would, in fact, give her advice, but she would not be invited to most of the meetings, and she would not understand why. She was hired for what the expertise that she had, PhDs and all the things that she had, credentials, very high credentials. But she was surprised. She was expecting that people would respect her for who she is, open the door for her, and welcome her opinions and her insights. But it was not what she found when she started this job. And that's what we worked on, not only on her presence and how to claim, those different rights of presence and of participations, but it was especially about this autonomy I'm talking about and this ownership that I'm talking about, waiting for instructions, directions, waiting that people welcome you and open their arms and say, oh my gosh, she's a PhD, she's a specialist of this and that, was what she had in mind, but it was not at all what people had in their mind. So by gaining back this autonomy to her, this ownership, she changed completely her attitude, her participation. She started to take initiatives to invite people to meetings that she would create and organize herself, where she could, in fact, prepare herself and make presentations of what she wanted to convey from the beginning, etc., etc. And she became an influencer. She became an impactor. She had really a very, very strong presence. It took maybe 3 or 4 months, but it was all about taking this ownership. That's the first story. Her life changed, really radically changed. She became happy, even in spite of different things that, of course, in a corporate environment are not always easy, layoffs, no promotion for her at a certain point in time because she was expecting that too. So all those things considered, what was important for her was to gain this level of independence. The other one for the last 3 minutes of our time is, in fact, a young fellow who was an intern this time, and an intern in a very small environment, a startup company, maybe with 4 or 5 employees, including the founder. And what was important for that intern is that he became so important in the equation. He was, in fact, an intern, but he had a lot of responsibilities, and there were a lot of expectations from him for delivering different things and being accountable for them. He was surprised. Intern is intern. I'm here to learn. I'm here to shadow everyone. I'm not here to be productive to that extent, but it was asked of him to be very productive, and he took it in the wrong way. He really thought that it was abusive. He thought it would be. It was really kind of taking advantage of him. But no, it was in fact the opportunity for him to learn while he would be in action and be very, very important to the team. So for a long period of time, he was reactive to this. He was rejecting it. He was not happy at all until, again, he was realizing that it was a dependence. A dependence on what? On a criteria or on a concept that internship is not anything that is productive or can be part of the team dynamics, and it was wrong. And once he made the switch again, when he shifted his mindset and started to get a growth mindset for himself, he realized that he probably also would have an opportunity to integrate the team and become fully employed, which in fact happened. And you know when this happened? It happened exactly the day when he could sit and say, hey, I'm totally autonomous, 90% autonomous. I make my own decisions. I decide where I go for the meetings, which conference I'm attending, when I'm taking a trip to this place and that place, because they trust me that I'm not doing this just for a trip or for my vacation, but I do this for a reason. And the trust being built with the management and with all the different peers that he had made him one of the best manager in the company. And today he's really brilliant. He's an SVP, part of the executive committee, and growing quickly and getting more and more responsibilities from internship to SVP. This is, in fact, a common story. I'm sure that there's some very common stories like that that you hear, or a consultant that was on an assignment and became also fully employed. I leave you with those stories, with those positive stories, with those incredible stories. To me, they are incredible because I see the emotion that people have when things happen, and then when they realize, like an epiphany, that wow, I didn't know I had all this freedom for myself. And once they take that realization, that awareness inside, and they really internalize it, they really, really work differently and function differently. They bring even something else home when they're not alone, and their face is smiling and positively so. So it's not, again, a magic formula. It's a mindset situation. It's a shift of mindset, and I really suggest that you think it over, and you contact me by email if you want, andre@andrepolitzer.com. You can go on andrepolitzer.com, the website. You can communicate via messaging over there, or you can also reach me on WhatsApp and on different channels where you can put your comments, especially LinkedIn, or YouTube, or Facebook, Instagram. And this is a program that is recorded and podcasted via Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. And I will ask you to, in fact, pay attention for the next one, because I don't know when it's going to be next week and which day and what time, as we are making that decision as I speak. So see you next week, hopefully. And thank you for attending today, and have a wonderful evening, a wonderful afternoon, or a wonderful morning for those who are waking up now. Take care.